দর্শক আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি চ্যানেল 24 এর নিয়মিত আয়োজন জানতে চাই শুনতে চাইতে আজ আমরা কথা বলবো গ্রামীণ ফোনের সিইও মাইকেল ফলের সাথে। Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so very much for having me.
So how long you have been here in Bangladesh?
I arrived in Bangladesh in late May, so basically we're talking about 5 months from now.
Okay. Yeah. And before coming to Bangladesh, where you were?
I was in Europe for a number of months, and then previous to that I was in Pakistan for about 30 months. And most of my career, however, before this has been in Africa.
Okay. Yeah. And you're Canadian, if I'm not wrong.
I'm a Canadian citizen, that's correct. I'm really blessed to be out here.
Yeah, and you have seen the world, right?
I've had a great opportunity to see many places, and the great advantage of being an expatriate in these assignments is you get to see more of the country than many of the people who live here do. So I've already had a chance to travel across many parts of Bangladesh, and a few small places I haven't seen yet, which will kind of square that out in January and February.
Yeah, that's good news. So which part of Bangladesh you like most in the last 5 months?
Well, I think Dhaka is exhilarating and exciting, and there's so much to do. And if you're okay with the kind of the congestion and so on, and you learned how to meditate in traffic, you're fine. But I've really enjoyed being in Chittagong. I thought Chittagong, the city itself, and the surrounding environment of the hill tracts and so on to be incredibly beautiful. Sylhet with the tea gardens, which I've seen, incredibly beautiful. Rajshahi has been also,
that's my hometown.
I've really enjoyed being out there, and I've had the chance to see some really extraordinary stuff that normally you don't see. So I'm very humbled and very happy to be here.
So you have seen the socio-economic development of Bangladesh, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think you have to recognize that the last 8 or 10 years of stable economic growth, the macroeconomic numbers tell a bit of a story. And you can see the industry and the desire to create a better Bangladesh, and the people that work for me and the people that I meet in industry that we serve. And it is really humbling and actually very exhilarating to see how hard people are working to create a better environment for themselves, their family, their nation, their children. So we play a part in that as a Grameenphone.
Right.
But and we have to be responsible in the way we do that. It's fantastic so far.
Right. As Grameenphone is the largest cell phone operator in Bangladesh, and for the last 20 years, and it has some contribution in the socio-economic development to the people's life.
Yeah.
What's your future plan?
Well, first of all, mobile is one of those technologies that is the greatest enablers of change in the world. Over the last 25 years, as mobile has expanded, it's fundamentally changed societies and changed people. It is a great equalizer. It basically creates opportunities for trade and education and medical services and security and information. There's still a lot of growth available here. We're at the very beginning of the telecom journey, to some extent, even here in Bangladesh. We have 3G for the last 3 years.
Yes.
But that's not the full data experience. And in order for the economy of Bangladesh to be competitive, in order for the businesses to be competitive internationally, for the schools to be able to be competitive internationally, we need even more data services. And over the next 2 or 3 years, inshallah, we will be able to bring the real data experience to Bangladeshis through new technologies that are going to be launched over the next few months and over the next couple of years.
Right. What's your experience about the 3G from the Grameenphone side and from the customer side? Because there are a lot of complaints still.
Listen, 3G, when we got the license, we invested in 10,000 sites over the first year in 2016. The growth has been immense, but 3G is not the ultimate data solution. It is good. We have to continue to grow our network. We have to continue to meet the demand. But in the last 3 months or 4 months alone, the amount of traffic on the 3G network for us has grown by 30%.
Is that so?
Yeah. Keeping up with that demand is very difficult. In large part, we're good at it. But there are some parts, for example, of Dhaka where I'm not at all satisfied. And there are pockets around the country where congestion is getting very important. And we either have to put more towers or get more spectrum. But we do that every day. We work literally every day in understanding where the weak spots are, because we see them as well. So we're not satisfied. And we need to continue to bring in new technologies and new assets to the market to meet this incredibly growing demand.
That's fair enough. What's your preparation about 4G?
Well, 4G is a necessity. 4G is a ticket towards economic competitiveness for Bangladesh. It's an increasingly digitized global economic system. The fourth industrial revolution is upon us now. Societies need to have the best data services possible in order to be competitive internally and externally to the rest of the world. So 4G is going to happen. It's going to be important, and it's going to bring really important changes to the way business, education, security, information is going to operate in Bangladesh, like it has in other countries where this has been launched.
Right. But there are some complaints about the data management system or data services that are available like Dhaka, outside of Dhaka. Because I heard people saying living in villages, they can't use 3G, but when they come to town or they come to the sub-districts, this data speed is like better than their villages.
Yeah, there could be some truth to that. The interesting thing is we build our networks from the outside in. We're different than other mobile operators. Our tradition has been to build in rural areas first. The interesting thing is there's not many alternatives to mobile in rural areas. So the usage is so much higher than you might expect in rural areas compared to urban areas. Now, that's changing with data and video coming on board, but the usage in rural areas is very strong, and there's no alternatives. So people are very sensitive to any variation in quality. So we have to continue to enhance our services in rural areas. And I know that we have about 1,000 places in the country where we could put up a tower tomorrow, and there would be a demand for it almost immediately.
Are you satisfied with the infrastructure provided by the government?
The government does not provide infrastructure to us. They provide regulation to us. And sometimes that regulation, most of the time that regulation is extremely helpful to the operators. Sometimes it does get in the way. And we do have debates with the regulator, with the Ministry of Finance, to actually build an ecosystem that will allow us to deliver services the most effectively possible to as many people as possible. The government keeps us responsible as the mobile operator for service quality. Yet I can't control my fiber optic cables anymore. And the government is now saying that I may have to not control my towers anymore. And that makes it a little difficult for us to square that circle to say you're responsible, but you don't have control over your assets. So we're working very closely with the government, both on the 4G licensing piece and on other parts, to make sure that we can deliver the best possible service to Bangladeshis affordably and with a good return for our shareholders as well.
What are the facilities I may get as customer when I get 4G?
Yeah, 4G, first of all, will give you real data service. 4G is, in fact, a native data service system. So you will get much better video services. Video is very key to the kinds of things that we're doing in the future. Speeds will be higher. Access to different kinds of content will be better as well. The ability to do video conferencing. Sometimes, you know, I've noticed that sometimes it's difficult to get around Dhaka. I don't know if you've noticed, because the traffic sometimes is a little difficult. In fact, most of the time, let's be honest. So I can actually run a video conference now in Dhaka from one area to another. I've actually been able to run over 3G video conferences that I'm late for a meeting. I run a video conference from my car. On 4G, that'll be a lot easier. But for the everyday people, it will mean better access to data, better access to educational tools, which are now done more and more in video, better access to medical services. You can consult with a doctor. You can have a doctor consult on an X-ray or on an MRI at a distance that's being transmitted over 4G. So there's a lot of tools that can come on board. And this is something that exists in other parts of the world today. These are not new inventions. 4G existed in some of these markets 7 or 8 years ago. So we can now, when we have the infrastructure of 4G here, these tools will come very rapidly to Bangladesh. And these tools will be made available to the people of Bangladesh, and it will change lives, it will improve the quality of living, and it will make the economy more competitive.
So are you ready with the overall infrastructure to give the proper service to the customers?
Launching the 4G network will be a little bit different than launching the 3G network. It will start likely in urban areas. The most important thing is who has a 4G handset.
Right.
And so about 11% of our customers have 4G handsets. So we know where they are because we see our network. We know where people's phones are in the network. So we will launch 4G gradually across. Over a couple of years it'll take to bring 4G around the country, but our objective is to make it available very broadly and fairly quickly. And the guidelines that the government is putting together obligate us to actually launch the service fairly, constantly, but gradually across the country over 2 or 3 years.
Right. Is there any timeline you're thinking of launching the 4G?
Well, first we need to get a set of guidelines, and those guidelines need to be both operationally acceptable and financially acceptable. There is a challenge for us from an economic point of view, and that is 3G only launched 3.5 years ago. We spent tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on 3G only 3.5 years ago. In fact, some of us have not finished launching 3G. When you launch another technology on top of that, it impacts that first investment. In many countries, in fact, the majority of countries, there was 5 to 10 years between 3G and 4G. 5 to 8 years between 3G and 4G. So this is short. So the economics are difficult. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but the pricing of the spectrum, the conditions of the license, the way we're going to buy this stuff, how we're going to pay for these licenses and this spectrum are really important. But we are working very hard. We've had great interfaces with the government to come to a solution. Hopefully, it will happen very quickly, and next year, for sure, there will be 4G in the country.
I'm hopeful like you, but on this discussion, I have to take a break. We'll come back after a break.
Awesome.
দর্শক আমরা আলোচনা করছিলাম গ্রামীণফোন খুব দ্রুতই তাদের 4G সার্ভিস সেবা গ্রাহকের জন্য উন্মুক্ত করে দিবে। আলোচনার এই পর্যায়ে বিরতি নিচ্ছি, সাথে থাকুন, ফিরছি একটু পর। দর্শক আমন্ত্রণ আরো একবার জানতে চাই, শুনতে চাই আজকের পর্বে কথা বলছিলাম গ্রামীণফোনের সিইও মাইকেল ফলের সাথে। Welcome to the show once again. So there are a few complaints from the government side as well from the NBR that Grameenphone often try to get away paying some taxes.
Yeah, I've seen those in the press as well, and I get a couple of answers to that. First of all, we are the largest taxpayer in the country. Well over 50% of our top line revenue ends up in the hands of the government of Bangladesh today. Bangladesh as a country is the second highest taxer of the telecom industry, users, but there are always differences of opinion between companies and the government. And if you look at how much tax have we paid over the last 5 years, the difference of opinion that we have is about 5.6% of that amount. It's not huge. And we do recognize that they have a very tough job to do. Some of these cases are in court, but nevertheless, we're prepared to work with the government to resolve these issues. It's not a huge amount in terms of the total taxation that we paid, but I recognize that these are a large amount of money. There's no intent to evade. Once there is a firm and final adjudication, either through discussion or through the courts, we have full ability to pay all those bills. There shouldn't be any concern. And it really is only 5.6% of the total contribution we've made to the exchequer over the last 5 years that is in question, according to the news that we've seen over the last few days. And by the way, the same day that that letter was produced, or that news, I was getting a note, a plaque from the government of Bangladesh for being the top taxpayer in the telecom industry for the last year. So there's a little bit, we have to make sure that we balance out these things a little bit.
I hope this debate will end very soon.
So do I, actually. I think it poisons a little bit the relationship between us and the state, and we have an ability to kind of resolve these issues calmly and amongst us. And yes, we have to recognize that some of these will be resolved in the court because there is an intractable difference of opinion, and that's what the judiciary is there to do, to help us solve these issues.
I hope so. Let's talk about the environment of Grameenphone. I heard the Grameenphone is offering quite a good amount of money to leave the jobs for the people who are in the Grameenphone. That's known as VRS.
Yeah, voluntary retirement system.
Why is that?
Well, our business is changing, and let me give you an example. As we make our products simpler, as we make our products more effective and easier to use, as customers choose to use more self-service, there's less calls to the call center. So we need less people in the call center. So we find a way to voluntarily ask, we've in the past found a way to ask people to voluntarily leave the company, I should say, and then we pay them for that. And we think that's a good way of dealing with these kinds of issues. It is absolutely clear that our business is transforming. We need different kinds of people. We need maybe less people in some areas, more in others. For example, we have a health service called Telenor Health. We've hired like crazy in that business. But we need less people over here, some people over here. The skill sets don't match. So as a business, we have to find a responsible way to kind of configure the business so they can operate for the future. And VRS is one of those tools. And I think last year, about 270 people took VRS. And they're slowly leaving the company between now and the end of this year.
And is there any other offer like that?
Well, for us, no. Now, at this point, that's where VRS stops. And we may have other mechanisms for making changes to the organization going forward. But we always want to do that with our employees in mind and making sure we recognize the service that they've given and to give people the chance to retrain themselves. Because the new world that we live in is different. The digital skills, the online skills, the skill set required to survive in the workforce is different now. And we're spending a lot of time and a lot of money training people. In fact, next year, every employee in the company is obligated to spend no less than 40 hours training on online courses during working hours.
How is that possible?
Because we're going to give them the time. We have an academy online, great courses from great universities around the world, and they're going to train on red way of work, on how to code, all kinds of different skill sets that we want to build in our workforce. And we're giving everybody 40 hours minimum. They can ask for more.
Weekly?
No, that's 40 hours is a week. 40 hours in a year.
Okay.
40
that's
hours.
Nothing.
Well, 40 hours in a year is 1 week of work. It's 2% of their work time. Actually, a little bit more than that if you take the vacations out. It gives them time to actually reskill and resource them. And we'll pay for the courses, and they will actually take the courses on their own time, on business time.
Oh, that's good that you pay for their own courses.
We pay for the courses, and they can do it on work time.
That's how you're encouraging your workforce to become more efficient and
Yeah,
strong.
so that old guys like you and me can actually have a future. We have to train ourselves. I go to class at least 3 or 4 times a year. I've done 3 classes in the last 2 years where I've gone out to university to change my own skill set so that I can able to be an effective manager in a new digital world. I mean, telecoms is no more carrying big cables and plugging them in. It's about online services. It's about online customer care. It's about chatbots. It's about OTT services. I have to learn those too. Everybody in the company has to learn these new skills. Whether they stay with us or they don't, they have to learn these skills in order to be employable in the future. And what we're doing now is we're providing a large variety of tools for them online, really cool courses that they can use, and they will be able to take time during their working hours to actually learn new skills.
That's great initiative, I believe. Is there any target within 2020 that you have to make a certain number of employee, like 999 or something? I heard. Is that a rumor, or is that just because you provide such courses and you make them more efficient? People can be like multitasking, things like that.
There's no specific number that we're targeting by 2020. We have lots of objectives for 2020. We need to get a different kind of revenue stream creating in the market because minutes and megabytes are no longer enough. But in terms of the number of individuals in the company, it depends. In the core business, there might be less, but as we create these new businesses like Skito or like Telenor Health or what we're doing in M-Agri, then there's a lot of people growing in those businesses. Overall, we probably employ directly, indirectly, and induced 100,000 people in the country. So the numbers that are people that are moving from one skill set to another. Yes, there might be some contraction in the size of the company. That's happened over the last 4 years anyways. But it's not kind of dramatic. And it will be done in the best possible way, preparing people for the next step in their career. The careers that you've had and I've had are going to be different. People who come into the workforce now, their average longevity in a job is 3 or 4 years, maybe less. These cradle-to-grave jobs no longer exist. There is no longer the same kind of job security in the workforce. So part of our responsibility as a responsible employer is to make sure our employees are prepared if they want to stay and prepared if they want to move along. And that's one of the things we need to do.
Right. So what are the other sectors of Grameenphone apart from the telephone service provider going on, like the Telenor Health or the Agri Service or the education? Are they doing good?
Well, yeah, Telenor Health in particular is something that I'm quite proud about. The product is called Tonic, and it's a form of micro insurance for people who don't have health insurance. It's available to our customers and to others. And part of it is also, most of it is free. About 5 million people by the end of this year on that program will be free. And we'll probably have close to 100,000 who are paying another fee or a larger fee, a few hundred taka at most, in order to get health insurance. This is a great initiative. There are other initiatives in our group in online advertising, or in big data management, or in, we'd have a satellite company. We have all kinds of things that we do in Telenor Group. And all these things are building us to having a broader, more diversified revenue stream, more than minutes and megabytes. We need now to create an environment where people can act, interact, and transact in their environment using our services, but the services of everybody else. So we don't want to do everything, but we'll create platforms so that the IT industry in Bangladesh can flourish, so it can get access to our 65 million customers, so it can actually create services and easily get them paid for. Financial services is another place. So that for us is the main role. If we can create a platform for the IT industry to flourish in the country by giving access to people, by giving tools so they can know who they're talking to through BI and internet, if we can give them platforms where they can deliver services and get paid for them, then the IT industry, the work that's being done by Basis and other great organizations, they can now actually monetize their services, have distribution and access to large markets, and make e-commerce and digital distribution a reality in Bangladesh. We are not going to do everything. We'll have certain little plays in here, or sometimes big plays, but we'll provide platforms for the industry in Bangladesh to be able to deliver services to Bangladeshis.
That's good. On this discussion, we have to take another break, and we'll come back after the break. দর্শক, আমরা কথা বলছিলাম গ্রামীণফোনের সিইও মাইকেল ফলির সাথে। উনি বলছিলেন যে গ্রামীণফোন চেষ্টা করছে একটি প্ল্যাটফর্ম তৈরি করার, যেখানে সবাই এসে সুযোগ পাবে নানান ধরনের উদ্ভাবনী কাজ করার। আলোচনার এই পর্যায়ে একটি বিরতি নিচ্ছি, সাথে থাকুন, ফিরছি বিরতি। আমন্ত্রণ আরও একবার জানতে চাই, শুনতে চাই। আজকে পর্বে কথা বলছিলাম বাংলাদেশের গ্রামীণফোনের সিইও মাইকেল ফলির সাথে। Welcome to the show for the last time.
Good.
So there is a long future and a bright future coming, and technology has been changing in every second and every minute. People I believe, no one watch TV or no one watch newspaper. Whatever they do, they put their life in a mobile phone.
Yeah.
I believe Grameenphone keep the thing in mind, moving ahead. What's your plan?
Well, first of all, I do think we're moving towards a more mobile lifestyle. And I think that's not a Bangladeshi phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon. And our ability to actually create an environment where people trust the environment to be able to act and interact with it and to actually live their life partly in a digital way is really important. So our job right now is to continue to create great connectivity first. So make more and more people connected, more voice and especially data services. We need to create an ecosystem, a set of tools where business can come in and serve these customers over our networks and be able to extract profitability from that. But at the end of the day, as a player in the Bangladeshi economy, we're a very large player in this economy. We're around 15% of the capitalization of the stock market. Our survival comes if we're able to keep this economy growing at the rate it has been growing. There are challenges coming with the fourth industrial revolution and robotics and AI and machine learning that are both challenges and great opportunities. But the lifeblood of that revolution is communications.
Right.
So if we're able to create, along with the government of Bangladesh, these incredible networks, these tools, these smart cities and these smart infrastructures to allow people to actually create their own content, their own businesses, their own services, then we can think about a digital Bangladesh. Mr. Joy made it very clear, and the Prime Minister has made it very clear, this is a fundamental objective, and it is important. We have to diversify our economy and our export economy. We're 83% on the RMG business. Fantastic industry. But that's at risk in the fourth industrial revolution. We need to actually find greater diversity. That will come through a great telecommunications network and a great regulation that allows these companies to thrive and grow and create more work and more jobs for the very large number of young people who are growing up into the workforce now.
Right. What are the social services that Grameenphone have for the mass people?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, but let me try and answer. We are a leader in terms of the benefits we provide our own employees. We start with that. Okay. So we have fantastic benefits for our own employees, including 6 months maternity leaves and all kinds of wonderful services for our people. Out there, the best thing we can do to develop society is to get people connected. We are, in fact, a sustainable development agency. Where we bring services, the economy grows. Opportunity is created. And yes, we have, the more traditional CSR activities for example, the floods. As a third part, during the floods, for example, we in the Red Crescent Society helped about 200,000 people. 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 families were helped by us through donations that we made for the North. So there are real challenges from that point of view as well that we do. But first, I say our first responsibility as a social actor, the biggest impact we can have, our positive social impact footprint, is through providing the services that we do. Because when you have a phone, if you didn't have it before, you have security, commerce, education, trade, communication, information, democracy. All these things come through better communications.
Right. As the Grameenphone is the largest and the most successful foreign investment in Bangladesh, I believe this message goes to the other companies and they will definitely come and they will feel interested to invest in Bangladesh. Is there any example that really hurts Grameenphone?
Listen, on balance, there are pros and cons in every market. And there are pros and cons here as well. We have a lot of challenges. But on balance, it's been a fantastic story for us over 20 years. And in fact, after this discussion today, I'm going to go to meet some analysts in Singapore and in Hong Kong, 20 analysts in total. And what we're talking about is a success story, the Bangladeshi success story, which is Grameenphone. But we're also talking about the Bangladeshi success story itself, because we want to see more foreign investment into Bangladesh. BIDA and the Security and Exchange Commission are creating great platforms for businesses to come here, get funding, and grow. And it's our job. It's a profound responsibility that we have as you said, a very large player in the economy and a foreign investment to a large extent, to go out and tell the story. Because we expect our politicians to say, this is a great place to invest. And we may expect Bangladeshis to say, it's a great place to invest. But when a foreign company goes out and says, we've been here for 21 years, we've been successful, it's tough, but there are great opportunities, and it's a great place to come and invest. That carries a lot of weight with foreign investors. So that's what we want to do. That's what we're going to continue to do. We're going to champion Bangladesh as a place to come and invest, to create jobs, to diversify the economy, to diversify foreign exports of the country. And we do that with great joy and with humility, because we think it's the right thing to do for us as a player in Bangladeshi society.
Right. So Bangladesh government is planning to become a middle-income country shortly.
Yeah.
It's their aim. It's their political agenda. Also, it's the agenda that will change the human lives in Bangladesh in any ways.
Yeah.
How Grameenphone can play a role.
I think again, it's the role of telecoms in changing people's lives is fundamental. And I think the government is absolutely right in promoting the 4G agenda and to get it out there and to try to get the broadest possible network created. We don't do everything. I don't provide water, I don't provide agriculture, but I provide the tools that make that better. So hydrological control, mobile agriculture, mobile medicine. All these tools run on networks that we create or on services that we may want to play in. But 90% of everything that's going to be done will be done by other people on our network. Our part of this deal is very simple. Build great networks, provide great service, make it easy for them to use our services, and provide a platform for Bangladeshi business to reach customers, to reach their patients, to reach their students, to reach the customer base that they have through digital means to become more efficient and to become more profitable and to diversify the economy.
Right, the last question. What would be the biggest challenge in this dream?
That's a good challenge. That's a good question. I think the biggest challenge right now is making sure we have the right policy framework that balances short-term gain, for example, in spectrum prices, with the long-term benefit of having a lot of spectrum available. I know that sounds a little technical, but spectrum is how we create great service. And if you have to charge too much for spectrum up front, economically, we can't buy that much. If the spectrum is cheaper and I can buy twice or three times the amount of spectrum, maybe that provides me for a better opportunity to potentiate the economy of Bangladesh. And yes, will I make money? Absolutely. That's a positive, by the way, that we have profitable businesses in Bangladesh. And essentially, we are, of all the mobile operators, we're only 56% owned from Telenor. The rest is owned either on the local stock exchange or by local shareholders. So we are a company that is deeply ingrained into the population and to the society of Bangladesh, and we're very proud and humble about that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming to the show and sharing your experience, hoping about the better dreams, and I believe this will, together we can go a long, long way.
I think so too. I think the positivity of the people of Bangladesh and the energy of the company that I have the great privilege of leading can do fantastic stuff.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to the show. দর্শক, আমরা কথা বলছিলাম গ্রামীণফোনের সিইও মাইকেল ফলের সাথে। মধ্য আয়ের দেশ হওয়ার জন্য বাংলাদেশকে অবশ্যই টেকসই নীতি গ্রহণ করতে হবে, যা হতে হবে অত্যাধুনিক এবং যুগোপযোগী। এইভাবেই বাংলাদেশ এগিয়ে যাবে সামনের দিনে। দেখা হবে জানতে শুনতে আগামী পর্বে।